Apparently, the Cleveland Browns have been getting a little too comfortable using Shadur Sanders' name behind the scenes. Not because they're scouting him, not because they're developing some long-term plan for the kid, but because, brace yourself, they're using his name as a negotiation tactic in quarterback contract talks. Let that sink in. They're not investing in Shedeur. They're not offering a real shot. They're name-dropping him like a threat in conversations with already established quarterbacks. Like, hey, we might just draft Shedeur if we don't take this deal.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That's not football strategy. That's corporate sleaze in cleats. And Coach Prime, he's having none of it. Now, we already know Deion doesn't hold back. His entire brand is built on confidence, accountability, and calling out the BS. But when it comes to his son, it hits different. This isn't just some college coach defending a recruit. This is a father, a former NFL superstar, and a current media juggernaut taking a blowtorch to the league's most guarded political game. Quarterback contracts. And you could feel the heat in his voice during his guest appearance on the New Heights podcast with Travis and Jason Kelsey. The vibe shifted. It wasn't playful Coach Prime banner. It was a man calling out a system that treats players like pawns instead of people. And here's the messed up part. He's absolutely right. The NFL doesn't develop quarterbacks anymore. It expects them to come in pre-cooked, fully seasoned, media trained, game ready. And if they're not, toss them out and draft the next shiny prospect. There's no patience, no mentoring, no long-term vision. Just results or else. Deion called that out hard. And not just for Shedeur's sake, but for every young QB being silently used as bargaining material in some executive's negotiation script. And Shedeur? Let's talk about him for a second. This is a kid who came into Colorado and owned the spotlight. Calm under pressure, fiercely intelligent, able to read defenses and deliver with precision. And yes, he's Deion's son, but make no mistake, he's not coasting on his dad's fame. Shedeur earned every bit his hype. But despite that, the NFL's acting like he's just useful, not as a future starter, not as a franchise cornerstone, but as a tool, a name that can be tossed around to remind someone like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts that they're not irreplaceable. Let's be clear, that's not just shady. That's disrespectful. And Coach Prime wasn't shy about it. He laid it all out. The NFL treats players like chess pieces. Contracts over character. Leverage over loyalty. Development? Please. That's for Disney movies. The real league wants you polished, prepped, and prepared, or gone. Deion's message was crystal clear. You will not use my son to play your little contract games. And he's not bluffing. The man has spent the last few years flipping the entire college football narrative. He took a Colorado program that had flatlined and turned it into a media event. Recruits followed. Viewership spiked. Culture shifted. Because wherever Deion goes, momentum follows. So now imagine what happens when he points that spotlight directly at the NFL's least talked about issue, the transactional abuse of young quarterbacks. Let's not pretend Shedeur is the only one this happens to. He's just the most visible right now, because his dad refuses to play silent. This is bigger than the Browns. It's about a system that chews up young players and spits them out the second they don't live up to unrealistic expectations. You don't get time to learn. You don't get time to adjust. It's be a star or be gone. And if your name happens to be useful in boardroom negotiations, congratulations, you're a bargaining chip before you're even a rookie. Coach Prime sees this game for exactly what it is. And instead of playing it, he's flipping the whole damn board. He knows that NFL teams have already started whispering about Shedeur behind closed doors. Not because they're excited, but because his name gives them power in negotiations. Don't want to pay your guy $250 million? Just threaten to draft a new kid on the block. Cool strategy. Until the new kid's dad happens to be a Hall of Famer with a microphone and no filter. This isn't the first time we've seen the league lean into this kind of cold calculation. But it is one of the first times someone has actually stood up and called it out in public, with the cameras rolling And what's wild is that the NFL might not even realize what just happened, because this wasn't just a spicy podcast moment. It was a warning shot, a carefully aimed, highly visible shot across the bow of every team trying to use Shedeur's name as an asset instead of treating him like an athlete. Coach Prime didn't just put the Browns on notice. He put the whole league on notice. From this point on, every GM, every scout, every media outlet that talks about Shedeur has to think twice. Are they talking about him because he's a real draft target? Or are they playing the same game Deion, just dragged into the daylight? Because if it's the latter, you better believe Coach Prime is watching, listening, and ready to respond. And here's what's really going to keep the Browns up at night. They didn't just cross a protective father. They cross a master of narrative. Deion Sanders doesn't need your PR machine. He is the PR machine. He doesn't wait for ESPN to validate him. He'll just go on a podcast, speak his truth, and suddenly the story is everywhere. Now everyone's talking. Now fans are questioning. Now analysts are picking apart the draft game and the contract game and the whole ideas of how this league values talent. And Shedeur? He's still in college, still working, still grinding. But now, the spotlight on him just got 10 times hotter. Every throw he makes this season will be seen through the lens of how the NFL tried to play him before he even entered the league. The Browns thought they were being slick, quiet, strategic. Instead, they lit the fuse on a public firestorm. And Deion? He's just getting started. He's not backing down. He's not softening the message. He's doubling down on accountability, authenticity, and player-first advocacy. Because this isn't about stunts. It's about legacy. He's building something here. And it's not just about Shedeur. It's about every player who's been seen as a what if, or a maybe instead of a human being with value. So, to wrap this up in the most Coach Prime way possible, NFL teams, watch yourselves. The days of quiet exploitation and slick negotiation tactics are numbered. Because when you try to play chess with Coach Prime, you better remember he's not a piece on the board. He's the guy flipping the table. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Coach Prime went too far, or was this the exact wake-up call the NFL needed? Is Shedeur being underestimated? And how do you think this will affect his draft journey next year? Hit that subscribe button if you want more deep dives into football chaos, sports drama, and pop culture meltdowns. This story, it's far from over. And trust, when the next move happens, we'll be here to break it down. This wasn't just a warning. This was a line in the sand. And the NFL? They just found out that Deion Sanders is not a coach you want to play PR games with. Because he doesn't just clap back. He creates a whole new conversation that you can't control. Now, let's zoom in on the real issue that Coach Prime cracked wide open. The cold, corporate, chessboard mindset that dominates the NFL today. This league has always been about money, power, and leverage. But over the last decade, it's become blatantly transactional in a way that's hard to ignore. Quarterbacks used to be groomed. Remember that? There was a time when a young QB would sit behind a vet, learn the playbook, absorb the pressure, and grow into the role. They had time. They had mentors. They had a chance. But now, nope. You get thrown into the fire, expected to carry a franchise, light up social media, and win a playoff game in your rookie season. Or you're labeled a flop. A bust, a bad investment. On to the next. And here comes Shedeur Sanders. Talented, poised, prepared. But not just walking into this chaos blindly, walking in with full awareness of how the game behind the game is played. Why? Because his father played it, mastered it, and now he's blowing it up. The Browns? Oh, they thought they were being clever. Quietly float Shedeur's name in the back room as a hypothetical. Just a little pressure point in talks with an existing QB. Just a, well, we could always go younger kind of comment. But here's the catch. They didn't account for the Prime effect. They didn't think Deion was listening. They didn't expect him to take that little whisper and broadcast it straight into the mic of one of the biggest sports podcasts on the planet. And now, that little whisper has turned into a national headline. Let's get one thing clear. Shedeur Sanders hasn't even declared for the NFL draft yet. He's still technically a college athlete. And already, he's being manipulated like a free agent chip in billion-dollar negotiations? If that's not the definition of disrespectful, what is? And this isn't about being soft or overly protective. This is about integrity. Because Shadur didn't ask to be dragged into someone else's contract drama. He's just trying to play football, study tape, earn his spot. But the NFL ecosystem doesn't care about that. It sees value in two forms: what you produce and how useful your name is. And when your name, like Shedur's, starts to carry hype and heat and media weight, that's when the sharks start circling. You become a tool, a bluff, a name to casually drop in boardrooms while agents negotiate and GMs posture. Coach Prime saw that, and he said, absolutely not. And you have to respect that. He's not out here asking for special treatment. He's not demanding that Shadur be an automatic first-round pick or that the league roll out a red carpet. What he's saying is way simpler and way more important. Treat my son with the respect his talent deserves. Don't use him if you're not serious. And that's fair. Actually, that's bare minimum. The sad part is, this isn't even a new play. The NFL has been doing this kind of thing for years. Floating names, stirring hype, creating competition where there isn't any, just to put pressure on agents and players during negotiations. And when that happens behind closed doors, nobody blinks. But the second Deion says it out loud, the league gets uncomfortable. Why? Because he named it. He exposed the quiet part. And once the quiet part becomes loud, it's a lot harder to keep pretending this is all just part of the business. No, this is bigger. This is about how we define value in a league built on human performance. And here's the irony. Shedur's value is real. He's not just some prospect with buzz. He's got the skills, the vision, the leadership. You can see it on the field. He's played behind a weak offensive line and still delivered. He's taken hits and bounced back. He's shown poise that some pros don't even have. But instead of that being the focus, he's being treated like an invisible asset in some financial power play. That's not just insulting. It's infuriating. And the Browns, bless them, just happen to be the team that got called out first. But let's not pretend this is isolated. This is a league-wide issue. Cleveland just happened to catch a direct prime-time uppercut to the chin because their whisper made its way back to Deion. And honestly, good. Because maybe this will finally force the NFL to reckon with how they treat incoming talent. Not just as bodies to fill depth charts, but as people with goals, families, and futures that deserve more than being tossed around in strategy meetings like their draft day fodder. Now, let's talk about what this means for Shadur going forward. Because if you thought the spotlight was bright before, it's blinding now. Every scout, every analyst, every executive in the league now has no choice but to consider the Shadur situation carefully. They can't just throw his name into casual convos anymore, because Deion's watching, and the public is, too. And that's not pressure. That's protection. Coach Prime just wrapped a shield around his son in the most public way possible. And don't be surprised if more parents and coaches start doing the same. Because let's face it, Deion is saying what a lot of people have wanted to say for years. Stop exploiting these kids before they even get a jersey. And Shadur, he's probably taking all of this in stride. Because the one thing he's been raised to do better than anyone is keep composure. While the internet erupts, while execs panic text each other, Shedur's just sitting in the film room, grinding, preparing, waiting, because he knows the spotlight isn't pressure, it's power. And when his moment comes, it's not going to be because some team used him as leverage. It's going to be because he earned it on his own merit, on his own timeline, with the full support of a father who refuses to let the system define his son's worth. So what now? Does the NFL adjust? Do teams start rethinking how they treat young talent? Or do they keep playing the same game, just a little more quietly? If they're smart, they'll realize this isn't just about Shadur Sanders. It's about the next Shadur, and the one after that. Because as long as teams see players as chess pieces instead of people, they're going to keep getting called out. Maybe not by Coach Prime every time, but by a growing wave of voices who are finally saying, enough. And if you're the Cleveland Browns right now, maybe sit this one out. Let the dust settle. Reflect. And next time, if you're going to float someone's name for leverage, Make sure their father isn't a media legend with nothing to lose. Because the way Deion sees it, this isn't just about one draft. This is about rewriting the way the NFL treats potential. He's not here to beg. He's here to build something better. And after this whole situation, you can bet the rest of the league is listening, whether they admit it or not. For decades, the NFL has operated like a fortress, untouchable, unbothered, and unaccountable. Players come and go. Coaches get rotated. Contracts are negotiated behind layers of agents, clauses, and polished statements. Everything is sanitized. Everything is scripted. Then Deion walks in, no filter, no script, and no fear. And suddenly, that polished NFL machine doesn't look so bulletproof anymore. Because here's a man who doesn't need their platform. He's built his own. He doesn't need their approval. He commands his own audience. He doesn't beg for respect. He demands it with results. And when he says, "You're not going to play with my son's name," it doesn't matter if he's talking to one team or 32. Everyone's listening. Because let's be honest, how many other coaches could call out the Cleveland Browns on a public podcast, indirectly check half the league's contract strategy, and not get blackballed the next morning? Exactly. Coach Prime isn't just a coach. He's a brand, a force, and a very inconvenient truth for a league that doesn't like being questioned. And the best part? He's not even trying to burn the system down. He's trying to wake it up. See, Deion isn't anti-NFL. He played in the NFL. He thrived in the NFL. He's in the Hall of Fame because of what he accomplished in that league. He's not here to throw rocks from the outside. He's calling out the problems from within. And that makes it 10 times harder to ignore him. Because how do you dismiss someone who knows your entire playbook? You don't. So now the question becomes, what's the league going to do about it? Do they clean it up? Own it? Change how they talk about incoming talent? Or do they keep doing what they've always done, just quieter, sneakier, under a thicker layer of nothing to see here press releases? That's what makes this moment so critical. Because what Deion exposed wasn't just a one-off issue with Shedeur. It was a pattern, a culture, a long-standing, unspoken rule in pro football that says, your name is valuable until we actually have to invest in you. And that right there, that's the part Coach Prime couldn't let slide. Because if you're a young player watching all this unfold, you're probably thinking, if they can do that to Shadur Sanders, what chance do I have? Exactly. That's the message Deion is trying to flip. He's showing every future prospect that you can speak up. You can question the system. And if you do it with confidence, integrity, and truth on your side, you might actually force change. Now let's swing it back to Shadur. Because while the league is panicking over Deion's comments, Shedur's just playing the long game. The smartest move he made, not declaring for the 2024 draft. And people questioned it at the time. Said he was leaving money on the table. Said he was missing his moment. But in hindsight, that was a chess move. Because now, after all this drama, after all the name-dropping and shady negotiations, Shedur's draft narrative is completely in his hands. He's got another season to build, to dominate, to control the headlines on the field, not behind closed doors. And when draft day finally comes, there won't be any question about what he brings to the table. There'll only be one question left for NFL teams. Do you really see his value now, or are you still just playing games? And you can bet Coach Prime will be watching. You can bet he'll have receipts. Because this is what Deion does. He remembers every slight, every backhanded compliment, every moment where someone thought they could outmaneuver him with slick talk and quiet deals. He may laugh, he may smile, but trust he's keeping score. And when draft season rolls around again, the teams that tried to use Shedur's name as a pressure tactic, they better be ready to explain themselves. Not just to Deion, but to fans, media, and most importantly, to the player they disrespected. Now look, let's give credit where it's due. This whole moment, this entire firestorm, could have been avoided. The Browns, and again, they're not the only ones, but they're the ones who got caught, could have just scouted Shadur like a legitimate prospect. They could have shown genuine interest, brought him in, talked about development, culture fit, long-term vision. Instead, they use his name as a chess piece. Not a player, not a person, just leverage. And now, they're in the middle of a PR mess of their own making. So here's your free advice, NFL GMs. If you're going to float a player's name in your contract talks, mean it. Don't play puppet master with someone's future. Don't invoke potential unless you're willing to invest in it. Because if you don't, well, you might just find yourself being the next topic of Coach Prime's podcast appearance. And nobody wants that smoke. And can we talk about the irony for a second? The league is constantly talking about character. It's all over their scouting reports, all over their draft analysis. Is he a team guy? Does he handle pressure well? Can he lead a locker room? Cool. But where's the character in using a young man's name to bully an existing player into taking less money? Where's the integrity in that? Where's the team culture when your negotiation strategy involves treating an undeclared prospect like a pawn? Exactly. Coach Prime's whole point is simple. You want players that have character? Show some yourself. Because this league has been running on double standards for far too long. Preach family. Preach loyalty. Then turn around and treat players like rental cars. Use them till they break down. Then swap them out for the next model. That's the part Deion's not letting slide anymore. And maybe that's what's got everyone so rattled. He's not just pointing out a crack in the foundation. He's asking the whole league to look in the mirror. And that's uncomfortable. Because when someone like Deion Sanders, a Hall of Famer, a head coach, a father, and a public figure, calls you out, it's not a headline. It's a reckoning. And the NFL might want to sit with that for a minute. Because Coach Prime isn't going anywhere. Shedeur isn't fading into the background. And this story, it's still writing itself. So, if you thought this was a climax, nope. We're still in Act 2. Comment below, are you with Deion on this one? Did the Browns cross the line? And what do you think Shadur needs to prove this season to shut the critics up for good? And don't forget to subscribe, because the drama, it's far from over. Coach Prime just got started, and we'll be here for every twist, turn, and touchdown.